Who gave you orders?
My bad.
Who gave you orders? Commander Hawkins roared, his voice echoing through the hospital corridor as Elena emerged from the mine covered in blood and mud. She had just pulled 8 men from a collapsed tunnel that every expert said was a death trap. She had crawled through darkness, fought rising water, and dragged a drowning man to safety with her bare hands. Now the most powerful rescue commander in Colorado was demanding answers from an 18-year-old intern who had disobeyed every protocol in the book. Elena met his eyes without flinching. Her answer would silence every man in that room and change everything they thought they knew about courage. Elena Cross had learned to be invisible long before she walked into Rocky Mountain Rescue Solutions. Her father had taught her that. James Cross, the bush pilot they called the Guardian of the North, had spent 20 years flying rescue missions across Alaska's most unforgiving wilderness. He'd pulled survivors from crashed planes, guided lost hunters through whiteout blizzards, and once landed his Cessna on a frozen river to save a family of 4 whose cabin had caught fire in the middle of January. He'd taught Elena everything. How to read weather in the clouds, how to navigate without instruments, how to stay calm when the world was falling apart around her. He'd also taught her that the loudest voice in the room was rarely the wisest. Listen first, he'd said 1,000 times. The mountain will tell you what it wants. The river will show you where it's going. Most people are too busy talking to hear. Elena had been 6 years old the first time he'd taken her into the wilderness. 16, when she'd watched him die. Now she was 18, standing in a room full of men who couldn't see her planning a mission that was going to kill them. Marcus Cole blocked her path before she could reach the briefing table. "This area is restricted, sweetheart." His voice carried the casual authority of a man who'd never been questioned by someone he considered beneath him. "Filing and coffee runs are down the hall." Elena didn't flinch. "I'm here for the tactical briefing." "The tactical briefing." Cole's eyebrows rose. He was 28, former military, with the kind of confidence that came from years of being the best in every room he entered. And why would the office intern need to be at a tactical briefing? Because I processed the geological surveys for the Silverton mine 2 weeks ago. I flagged structural concerns in sections 5 through 9. Did you now? Yes, and I noticed the primary extraction route runs directly through section 7. Cole's expression shifted from amusement to annoyance. "Listen, I don't know what they taught you in high school geology, but—" "Elena," the voice came from behind her. Margaret Walsh, the operations chief, stood in the doorway with a tablet in her hands and a look that could cut glass. "Leave her alone, Marcus." Margaret's tone left no room for discussion. "She's supposed to be here." Cole's jaw tightened. "Since when do interns sit in on tactical planning?" "Since I said so." Margaret stepped past him, gesturing for Elena to follow. "Commander Hawkins approved it. You have a problem, take it up with him." The briefing room fell silent as Elena entered. 8 men turned to look at her, some curious, some dismissive. One, a gray-haired veteran named Thompson, who'd been running mountain rescues for 30 years, just shook his head and looked away. Elena took a seat in the back corner and opened her notebook. She'd learned to be invisible. But that didn't mean she wasn't watching everything. Commander Derek Hawkins stood at the front of the room, pointing at a projected map that showed the Silverton mine's tunnel system spreading like veins through the mountain. 3 civilians entered the mine 48 hours ago. Amateur spelunkers. 2 males, 1 female, ages 24 to 31. They missed their check-in yesterday morning. Emergency beacon activated at 1400 hours from somewhere in the lower levels. He tapped the screen, zooming in on a section marked in red. Last known position Section 8, approximately 200 meters below surface level. The mine's been abandoned since 1978. Structural integrity is... He paused. Questionable. Questionable how? Thompson asked. The county condemned the main entrance 15 years ago. There's evidence of previous collapses in Sections 3 and 6. Our entry point will be the secondary access shaft on the north face. Hawkins pulled up another image. Cole, you'll lead the primary extraction team. 8 men. We go in through the north shaft and navigate through Sections 4 and 5 to reach Section 8. Total distance roughly 1.3 kilometers. Cole nodded, already visualizing the route. Timeline. Weather window closes in 18 hours. We need to be in and out before the storm hits. I'm estimating 6 hours for insertion location and extraction if everything goes smooth. And if it doesn't go smooth? Hawkins didn't answer immediately. Then we adapt. Elena's pen stopped moving. She'd been taking notes, documenting every detail of the briefing the way she documented everything. But something Hawkins said had triggered a memory. Section 7. She flipped back through her notebook, scanning the geological data she'd compiled 2 weeks earlier. The surveys had been dry-reading technical reports full of measurements and engineering jargon, but one detail had stood out. Section 7 showed evidence of water infiltration. The support beams had been installed in 1952 and never reinforced. The fault line running beneath the mine had shifted 0.3 centimeters in the past decade. 0.3 centimeters didn't sound like much, but Elena's father had taught her what small shifts meant in unstable terrain. She looked at the projected route. North shaft to Section 4, Section 4 to Section 5, Section 5 to Section 6, then directly through Section 7. Her hand rose before she could stop herself. Question from the back, Cole said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Does the intern have tactical input for us? Several men laughed. Elena stood her ground. The primary route passes through Section 7. Yes, we covered that. Section 7 has significant water infiltration. The geological survey from March shows evidence of beam degradation and fault line movement. If there's been any seismic activity in the past 6 months, there hasn't been. Cole cut her off. I checked the reports. Did you check the subsurface readings? Silence. Cole's expression hardened. Excuse me. The surface reports only show activity above magnitude 3, but Section 7 sits directly above a secondary fault that's been recording microtremors for the past year. Nothing strong enough to register on standard equipment, but enough to compromise already weakened support structures. Thompson leaned forward in his seat. How do you know about the secondary fault? Because I read the full geological survey, not just the summary. The room had gone very quiet. Hawkins studied Elena with an expression she couldn't read. What are you suggesting, Miss Cross? I'm suggesting you use Section 6 as your primary corridor instead of Section 7. It adds another 300 meters to the route, but the structural integrity is significantly better. Cole laughed. You want us to add an extra half hour to our timeline because an 18-year-old intern has concerns about geological surveys she probably didn't understand. I understood them fine. Did you? Because I've been doing mountain rescue for 6 years and I've never once had an office assistant try to rewrite my extraction plan. Elena felt the heat rising in her chest, but she kept her voice level. I'm not trying to rewrite anything. I'm trying to keep your team alive. My team doesn't need protecting by a kid who's never been below the surface. Something flickered in Elena's eyes. Something old and painful. You don't know what I've been through. I know you've been processing paperwork for 6 weeks. That's what I know. Cole turned back to Hawkins. Commander, can we get back to the actual briefing? Hawkins was still looking at Elena. "Miss Cross, do you have documentation of these concerns?" "Yes, sir. I compiled a risk assessment last week. I submitted it to operations." "I never saw any risk assessment," Cole said. Margaret Walsh cleared her throat. "It came across my desk. I forwarded it to tactical review. And it was flagged as non-critical. The recommendation was noted, but not implemented." Elena closed her notebook. "Then I've said what I needed to say." She sat down. The briefing continued, as if nothing had happened. But Thompson was watching her now, and his expression had changed from dismissal to something else entirely. Elena found Margaret in the equipment bay after the briefing ended. "They're going to get hurt." Margaret didn't look up from the inventory she was checking. Maybe I showed you the data. Section 7 is a death trap waiting to happen. And I passed your concerns up the chain. That's all I can do." "That's not all you can do." Margaret stopped, set down her tablet, looked at Elena with the kind of tired patience that came from decades of fighting battles that couldn't be won. "Elena, you're 18 years old. You've been here 6 weeks. You're brilliant, I'm not saying you're not, but you don't have the standing to override a tactical commander with 6 years of field experience." "Standing doesn't matter if I'm right." "Of course it matters. It's all that matters." Margaret picked up her tablet again. "This isn't about who's right. It's about who gets listened to. And right now, that's not you." Elena's hands clenched at her sides. "Then what am I supposed to do? Stand here and watch them walk into a collapse? You could trust that they know what they're doing." "They don't." Margaret met her eyes. "Then I guess you'll have to find another way to help." She walked away, leaving Elena alone among the climbing ropes and rescue equipment. Elena stood there for a long moment, breathing slowly the way her father had taught her. Find another way. She looked at the equipment, the emergency packs, the geological maps spread across the planning table. Her father had died saving strangers, had died because he'd seen danger that no one else could see and refused to stand by while people walked into it. She touched the compass in her pocket. She wasn't going to make the same mistake. Elena spent the next 4 hours memorizing every passage in the Silverton mine. The original surveys were incomplete, decades old, drawn before modern mapping technology, but she found supplementary reports in the county archives. Ventilation shaft locations, abandoned service corridors, emergency exits that had been sealed in the 1970s, but might still be accessible if the concrete had degraded. By midnight, she knew the mine better than anyone on the rescue team. She also knew exactly where they were going to die. Section 7 had 3 critical failure points. The main support beam at the junction of corridors 7A and 7B. The ceiling braces along the 40-meter stretch between markers 72 and 79. And the drainage tunnel beneath the floor that had been slowly filling with groundwater for the past decade. If the team walked through Section 7 with full gear, 12-man equipment, the vibration of heavy boots on unstable ground, the probability of structural failure wasn't just possible. It was almost certain. Elena stared at the maps until her eyes burned. Then she picked up her phone and called the only person who might listen. Thompson answered on the 3rd ring. "Who is this Elena Cross from the briefing?" A long pause. "It's 1 in the morning. I know. I need to show you something." "Whatever it is, it can wait until—" "No, it can't." Something in her voice must have caught his attention because he didn't hang up. "Where are you?" "Equipment bay. I have the full geological surveys. The ones that weren't in the briefing package." Another pause. Longer this time. "Give me 20 minutes. Thompson walked into the equipment bay, looking like a man who'd seen too many ghosts. He was 62 years old, with the weathered face and careful movements of someone who'd spent a lifetime pulling people out of places they shouldn't have been. He'd been running mountain rescues before Elena was born. Before her father had made his first flight into the Alaskan wilderness. He'd also lost 4 team members in a mine collapse 15 years ago. Elena knew this because she'd researched everyone on the team. Thompson's file had been buried in the incident reports, a tragedy at the Monarch mine that had killed 2 rescuers and 2 of the civilians they'd been trying to save. The official cause, unexpected structural failure. The real cause, someone had missed the warning signs. "Show me what you've got," Thompson said. Elena spread the surveys across the table. "This is the primary route Cole's planning to use. North shaft to section 4 to 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. Thompson traced the route with his finger. Standard approach. Good sight lines, minimal vertical variation. Also runs directly through the most unstable section of the entire mine. She pulled out the subsurface readings. This is the March survey. See these micro-tremor recordings. They're small, too small to show up on standard seismic reports, but they're consistent. 1 every 8 to 12 hours for the past 14 months. Thompson's expression didn't change, but his finger had stopped moving. Each tremor causes microfractures in the surrounding rock. Individually, they're nothing. Cumulatively. Elena pointed to the Section 7 diagram. The support beams here, and here are operating at maybe 60% structural integrity, maybe less. You're saying the whole section could collapse? I'm saying it's already collapsing. Just slowly. The team walks through there, adds their weight, their vibration, their equipment. It becomes a catalyst. Elena nodded. Thompson was quiet for a long time. He studied the surveys, the readings, the failure point analysis Elena had compiled. Finally, he looked at her. "How did you know to look for this?" Elena's jaw tightened. "Experience." "What kind of experience?" "The kind nobody wants to hear about from an 18-year-old. Thompson leaned against the table. His eyes were old, tired, carrying the weight of every person he'd failed to save. "I lost people in a mine," he said quietly. "Monarch 2009. 2 of my guys, 2 civilians. Everyone said it was bad luck. Unexpected failure." He paused. "But I knew something was wrong before we went in. I felt it. I just couldn't prove it, so I kept my mouth shut." Elena felt the words catch in her throat. "I know what that feels like." "Do you? My father died in a collapse 2 years ago. He saw the warning signs. He tried to warn people. They didn't listen." She met Thompson's eyes. "He went in anyway. Saved a family of 4. Couldn't save himself." The equipment bay was silent, except for the hum of the overhead lights. Thompson straightened. "I can't change the tactical plan. That's Cole's call, and Hawkins backs him. I know. But I can make sure someone's watching. Someone who knows what to look for." He paused. "You want to come along as support crew?" Elena's heart hammered. "Cole won't allow it. Cole doesn't get to decide who I bring as my technical assistant." Thompson picked up one of the surveys. "You know this mine better than anyone on the team. If something goes wrong, I want you close enough to help. And if nothing goes wrong," Thompson almost smiled, "then you'll have wasted a day underground and Cole can tell everyone he was right." He headed for the door. "Get some sleep. We deploy at 0600. He was gone before Elena could respond. She stood alone in the equipment bay holding her father's compass. 36 hours. She had 36 hours to prove she wasn't just an invisible intern, or 36 hours to watch good men die because they wouldn't listen. The transport convoy left base camp at exactly Super 600. Elena sat in the back of the third vehicle, wedged between Thompson and a pile of rescue equipment. Her pack contained emergency supplies, geological instruments, and a satellite phone that Margaret had slipped her at the last minute with a look that said more than words could. Cole had not been happy to see her. Absolutely not. He'd planted himself in front of Hawkins the moment Elena climbed out of the vehicle. She's not trained, she's not qualified, and she's not coming anywhere near my operation. She's coming as Thompson's technical support, Hawkins had replied calmly. Non-tactical role. She stays at the staging area unless there's an emergency. What kind of emergency would require a teenage file clerk? The kind where we need someone who's memorized every geological survey for a mile in every direction. Hawkins's voice hardened slightly. I read her risk assessment last night, Cole. The one operations flagged as non-critical. Cole's face went blank. Sir, the concerns she raised about Section 7, they're valid. Hawkins held up a hand before Cole could interrupt. I'm not changing the tactical plan. Your route is solid based on standard protocols, but I want someone monitoring structural indicators in real time. If something shifts, I want to know before it becomes a problem. Cole had stared at Elena with undisguised contempt. Fine, but she stays at staging. I don't want her anywhere near my team. Agreed. That had been 3 hours ago. Now they were approaching the mine entrance, and Elena could feel something cold settling in her chest. The same feeling she'd had 2 years ago, watching her father's plane disappear into the clouds. The feeling that something terrible was coming, and nobody was going to stop it. The north shaft entrance was a concrete-lined hole in the mountainside, barely wide enough for 2 men to walk abreast. Cole gathered his team at the entrance for final equipment checks. 8 men total, including himself. Thompson's 4-man support team would establish a staging area 200 meters inside the entrance, maintaining communication and providing backup if needed. Elena would stay with Thompson. At least that was the plan. Comms check, Cole's voice crackled over the radio. All units sound off. The team reported in one by one. Elena listened to their voices, memorizing each one. Martinez, Chen, Rodriguez, Williams, Jackson, O'Brien, Powell. 8 men who didn't know they were walking into a death trap. Support team in position, Thompson reported. All systems green. Copy that. Primary team moving to Section 4. A pause. And Thompson, keep your technical support on a short leash. I don't need any more geology lessons. Thompson didn't respond. He just looked at Elena, and his eyes said everything his voice couldn't. Be ready. The primary team disappeared into the darkness. Elena watched them go, her hand resting on the geological survey she'd memorized 100 times. Section 4 was stable. Section 5 was stable. Section 6 was mostly stable. Section 7 was going to kill them. All she could do now was wait for it to happen, and pray she'd be fast enough to save them when it did. The first 3 hours were routine. Elena monitored the seismic readings from the staging area, watching for any deviation from baseline. Thompson coordinated with the primary team, tracking their progress through the tunnel system on a digital map that showed their positions as glowing dots. They moved through Section 4 without incident. Section 5 took longer. A partial collapse had narrowed one corridor, requiring the team to clear debris before proceeding, but they adapted and pushed forward. Elena watched their progress with growing dread. They were approaching Section 6. the last stable zone before Section 7. Primary team to staging. We've reached Junction 6 Alpha. Cole's voice was confident professional. Proceeding to Section 7. ETA to target zone 45 minutes. Elena's hand shot to her radio. Staging to primary. Request updated structural readings before proceeding. A long pause. Who authorized this transmission? Thompson keyed his mic. I did. She's monitoring seismic activity. What are your readings? Another pause. When Cole spoke again, his voice was cold. Readings are normal. Support beams intact. No visible degradation. We're proceeding as planned. Primary recommend you reduce team weight in Section 7. Send 2 men through first, verify stability before denied. Cole's voice cut through the static. We don't have time for extra precautions. The civilians have been down here 48 hours. Every minute we waste is a minute they might not have. Cole, enough. The finality in his voice left no room for argument. We're going through. Maintain radio silence unless there's an actual emergency. The channel went dead. Elena stared at the screen, watching the 8 dots move toward Section 7. Thompson put a hand on her shoulder. You did what you could. It's not enough. It never is. His voice was heavy with old grief. Sometimes all you can do is be ready to pick up the pieces. Elena watched the dots enter Section 7. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then the mountain began to shake. The first tremor was subtle. A vibration that could have been footsteps, could have been equipment settling, could have been nothing at all. Elena felt it in her bones before the instruments registered anything. Thompson! Her voice was sharp. Did you feel that... The old man had frozen mid-motion, his hand hovering over the communication console. His face had gone pale. Yeah, I felt it. Elena grabbed the seismic monitor, watching the needle that had been steady for 3 hours suddenly jump. Not much, just a small spike. But she knew what small spikes meant in unstable terrain. Primary team, this is staging. Thompson's voice was controlled, but Elena could hear the tension underneath. Report status. Static. Cole, respond. More static. Then a burst of noise that might have been voices, might have been something else entirely. Primary team, do you copy? The radio crackled. Martinez's voice came through, broken and distorted. Contact lost with point man sealing fragments. Cole is... The transmission cut out. Elena's blood turned to ice. What happened? Thompson was already on his feet, grabbing equipment. Martinez, what's your situation? Nothing but static. Then the second tremor hit. This one wasn't subtle. The ground lurched beneath their feet, sending equipment crashing off tables. Elena grabbed the wall to steady herself, feeling the mountain groan around them like a wounded animal. Dust rained from the ceiling. We need to move. Thompson was already heading toward the tunnel entrance. If Section 7 collapsed. It did. Elena pulled up the structural diagram on her tablet, watching in horror as red warnings bloomed across the screen. Support beam failure at Junction 7A. Ceiling collapse along corridor 72 through 79. She looked up. They're trapped. Thompson stopped. Turned. His face showed everything his training had taught him to hide. How bad? Elena checked the readings again, praying she was wrong. She wasn't. The collapse has divided them into 3 separate pockets. 4 men in Section 7, Alpha 2 in 7 Beta 2 in the drainage tunnel. She paused. Including Cole. Can they get out? Not the way they came in. The main corridor is completely blocked. Thompson grabbed his radio again. Staging to base camp. We have a critical situation. Section 7 has collapsed. 8 men trapped, location confirmed via structural monitoring. Request immediate backup and heavy extraction equipment. The response came through garbled but understandable. Hawkins's voice tight with controlled panic. Copy staging. Backup team mobilizing. ETA to your position 90 minutes. Can you reach them? Thompson looked at Elena. She was already calculating. The blocked corridors, the alternative routes, the ventilation shafts she'd memorized at 2 in the morning when everyone else was sleeping. Maybe. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Calm. Focused. Like her father's voice in the moments before everything went wrong. There's an old service corridor that branches off from Section 5. It was sealed in 1978, but the concrete has degraded. If we can breach it, there's a path through the ventilation system that connects to Section 7 Beta. That's not a rescue route, that's a crawl space. It's the only option that doesn't require waiting 90 minutes. Elena grabbed her pack. 2 of them are in the drainage tunnel. If groundwater has been accumulating the way the surveys suggest, that tunnel is going to flood within the hour. Thompson stared at her. You can't be serious. Cole has maybe 60 minutes before he drowns. The backup team won't be here for 90. She slung the pack over her shoulders. I'm going. Elena, you're 18 years old. You're not trained for... I've been trained my whole life. She met his eyes, and something in her gaze made him stop. My father spent 20 years teaching me how to navigate places like this. I've survived 2 collapses. I've pulled people out of situations worse than this. Her voice cracked slightly. He died because I couldn't get to him in time. I'm not letting that happen again. Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'm coming with you. No. Elena shook her head. You need to stay here. Coordinate with the backup team. Guide them to the right positions when they arrive. She pulled the geological maps from her pack and spread them across the table. These are the access points. Section 7 Alpha is here. 7 Beta is here. The drainage tunnel connects here. Tell them to focus on Alpha first. That's where the majority of the team is trapped, and the structure is more stable. And you? I'm going after Cole. Thompson grabbed her arm. Elena, if that drainage tunnel floods while you're in there, then at least I'll have tried. She pulled free, but gently. Someone has to go, Thompson, and I'm the only one who knows the way. She didn't wait for him to respond. The darkness of the mine swallowed her whole. Elena moved fast. The route she'd memorized took her through Section 5 past the debris field the primary team had cleared hours earlier to a junction that didn't appear on any of the official maps. The sealed service corridor. It looked exactly like the surveys had described. Crumbling concrete rusted metal supports a gap just wide enough for a small person to squeeze through. Elena didn't hesitate. She dropped to her knees and crawled. The space was tight, dark, suffocating. Her headlamp cast wild shadows on walls that seemed to press closer with every meter. Dust filled her lungs. Sharp rocks tore at her clothes. She kept moving. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Steady breathing. Controlled movements. Don't think about the weight above you. Just focus on the next handhold, the next breath, the next moment. She'd been in worse places than this. She'd survived worse things than this. After what felt like hours but was probably only 15 minutes, the crawl space opened into a larger passage. The ventilation system. Old, corroded, but intact. Elena checked her position on the tablet, cross-referencing with the structural diagram she'd committed to memory. Section 7 Beta was 200 meters ahead. The drainage tunnel was just below it. She started running. The first voice she heard was Rodriguez's. He was praying. Quiet, desperate Spanish that echoed through the metal walls of the ventilation shaft. "Rodriguez!" Elena shouted into the darkness. "Can you hear me?" The praying stopped. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. "Who is that?" "Elena Cross. I'm coming through the ventilation system. Where are you?" A pause. Then, incredulous, "The intern." "Yeah, the intern." She was already locating the access panel that would drop her into Section 7 Beta. "How many are with you?" "Just O'Brien. He's hurt bad. Legs broken, maybe worse. We can't move him." "Don't try. I'm coming to you." She found the panel corroded, but movable. "Stand back from the vent." "Wait, what are you—" Elena kicked. The panel gave way on the third strike, crashing into the tunnel below with a sound that echoed like thunder. She dropped through the opening landing in a crouch headlamp sweeping the space. Rodriguez stared at her like she was a ghost. He was covered in dust and blood, his tactical vest torn, one arm hanging at a bad angle. Behind him, O'Brien lay against the wall, face pale with shock. His right leg bent in a way legs weren't supposed to bend. "How did you—" Rodriguez couldn't finish the sentence. "Later." Elena was already moving to O'Brien, checking his pulse, his breathing, the severity of the injury. "How long ago did the collapse happen?" "Maybe 20 minutes? I don't know. Everything happened so fast." "Where are the others?" "Martinez, Chen, and Williams are somewhere on the other side of the blockage. We can hear them sometimes. Jackson and Powell were further back. I don't know if they made it." "And Cole?" Rodriguez's face darkened. "He was at the front. When the ceiling came down, he fell through the floor. There's some kind of drainage tunnel below us." He swallowed hard. "We heard him calling for a while. Then he stopped." Elena's heart hammered. "How long since you heard him?" 10 minutes. Maybe 15. She looked at the floor. Cracked. Unstable. But she could see where Cole had fallen through a jagged hole, about 30 feet away, barely visible in the beam of her headlamp. "O'Brien needs to stay still," she said, pulling emergency supplies from her pack. "I've got the backup team coming. They'll be here in about an hour. Can you hold out that long?" Rodriguez nodded weakly. "We don't have much choice." "You're going to be fine." She pressed a compression bandage into his good hand. "Keep pressure on his wounds. Don't let him move. And Rodriguez, yeah, when they ask how you got out of this, tell them an 18-year-old file clerk saved your life." She allowed herself a small smile. "I want Cole to hear every word." Then she moved toward the hole in the floor. "Wait." Rodriguez grabbed her arm. "You can't go down there. That tunnel floods when the water table rises. If you get trapped, I know." Elena looked back at him. "That's why I have to go now." She didn't give him time to argue. The drainage tunnel was waist-deep in water and rising. Elena dropped into it with a splash that soaked her to the bone, gasping as the cold hit her like a fist. Her headlamp flickered stabilized, cast wavering light across the black surface of the water. "Cole?" Her voice echoed off the metal walls. "Cole, can you hear me?" Nothing. She started wading forward, fighting the current that wanted to push her back. The water was moving faster than she'd expected. Rising faster. The surveys had been wrong about the rate of accumulation. Or the collapse had opened new channels. Either way, she had less time than she'd thought. Cole. Still nothing. She pushed forward deeper into the tunnel water, rising to her chest now. Her pack dragged at her shoulders. Her muscles screamed from the cold. "Keep moving. Don't think. Just keep moving." Then she heard it. A sound. Weak. Almost lost in the rush of water. "Here. Cole!" Elena surged toward the voice. "Keep talking. I'm coming." "Can't. Trapped." She found him 30 feet further in. He was pinned against a debris pile, water lapping at his chin, one arm twisted behind him, where a collapsed beam held him in place. His face was barely visible above the surface, pale and terrified, nothing like the arrogant officer who'd dismissed her concerns 12 hours earlier. "Help." His voice was raw. "Please, help me." Elena reached him, bracing herself against the current, assessing the situation with the clinical focus her father had drilled into her. The beam was too heavy to lift alone, but there was a gap beneath it, small, but maybe enough if she could create some leverage. "I'm going to get you out." She was already pulling tools from her pack. "But I need you to help me. Can you move your legs?" "I think so. I don't know. Everything's numb." "Try." She felt him shift against the debris, heard him grunt with pain. "Yeah, I can move them." "Good. When I lift this beam, you push yourself forward. Understand? It won't work. That beam weighs." "I didn't ask how much it weighs." Elena positioned herself, jamming a pry bar into the gap beneath the beam. "I asked if you understand." Cole stared at her. The water was at his lips now. He had maybe 3 minutes before it covered his face. "I understand." "On 3, Elena braced. 1, 2, 3. She pushed with everything she had. Her muscles screamed, her vision blurred. The beam shifted barely an inch, but enough. "Move!" she shouted. Cole threw himself forward, clawing at the water, kicking against the debris that held him. For a horrible second, he stuck. Then he was free, gasping, choking, grabbing onto Elena like she was the only solid thing in the universe. "I've got you!" She was already pulling him toward higher ground. "I've got you! Keep moving!" "You came!" His voice broke. "You actually came!" "Save your breath. We're not out yet." The water was still rising. They reached the breach in the floor the hole Cole had fallen through, just as the water rose above their shoulders. Elena looked up at the gap, calculating distance. It was 8 feet above them, maybe 9. The walls were slick with moisture, no handholds. "I can't climb that," Cole's voice was hoarse. "My arm, you don't have to climb." Elena pulled out a length of climbing rope from her pack. "Rodriguez is up there. He'll pull you out." "What about you?" "I'll follow." She tied the rope around Cole's waist, checked the knot twice, then cupped her hands around her mouth. "Rodriguez, I've got Cole. I need you to pull him up." A pause. Then Rodriguez's voice, distant but clear. "Send him up." Elena looked at Cole. "Ready?" "No." He met her eyes. Something had changed in his face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. "Elena, I'm sorry. For everything I said. For not listening. Tell me when we're out of this mine." When she grabbed the rope. "Rodriguez, pull." The rope went taut. Cole rose clumsy and slow, his broken arm hanging useless at his side. Elena watched him go, counting seconds. The water was at her chin now. She heard Cole reach the top, heard Rodriguez's voice shouting something she couldn't make out. The rope dropped back down. Elena grabbed it with numb fingers, started to pull herself up. The current hit her like a wall. She lost her grip, went under, tumbled backward in the black water. Her headlamp flickered and died. Darkness swallowed her. She clawed toward where she thought the surface was lungs burning, panic rising in her chest. Her hand hit something solid. The wall. She'd been pushed against the wall. She braced her feet against it, pushed herself upward, broke the surface, gasping. "Elena!" Rodriguez's voice was frantic. "Elena, grab the rope!" She couldn't see it, couldn't see anything, but she could feel the current trying to drag her deeper into the tunnel, toward the collapsed section where no one would ever find her body. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "The mountain tells you what it wants. Are you listening?" She listened. The current was strongest on her left. The water was flowing toward something, a drain, an opening, a way out. Or a way to die faster. She made her choice. Instead of fighting the current, she let it take her. 40 seconds later, Elena burst out of a drainage pipe into open air. She crashed into a shallow stream, coughing, retching alive. Above her, the mountain loomed against a gray sky. Rain was falling, the storm Hawkins had warned about arriving early. She lay in the water for a moment, staring at nothing, feeling her heart pound in her chest. Then she pulled out her radio. Somehow, impossibly, it still worked. "Thompson." Her voice was a rasp. "Thompson, do you copy?" Static. Then, Elena, where are you?" "Outside, south face. There's a drainage exit near the old processing facility." She struggled to sit up. "I got Cole out. Rodriguez and O'Brien are in Section 7 Beta. The others are still trapped in 7 Alpha. A long pause. "The backup team just arrived. We're heading to your coordinates." "Thompson." Elena closed her eyes. "Tell them to hurry. The water table is rising faster than we thought. If they don't reach the others in the next 30 minutes. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Elena was still sitting in the stream when the rescue vehicles arrived. Thompson found her first. He dropped to his knees beside her, checked her breathing, her pulse, her pupils. "You're hypothermic." His voice was rough. "We need to get you warm." "The team, being extracted now. Cole told us where everyone was. The backup crew is pulling them out as we speak." Elena felt something release in her chest, something she'd been holding since the moment the first tremor hit. All of them. Thompson helped her to her feet. "Because of you. Every single one of them is alive because of you." Elena leaned against him, too exhausted to stand on her own. She thought about her father, about the last time she'd seen him climbing into his plane to save a family he'd never met. He'd told her to stay behind that day, told her it was too dangerous. She'd listened. She'd regretted it every day since. Not this time, she thought. Not this time. The rescue trucks were loading casualties when they reached the staging area. Elena saw Cole on a stretcher, his arm splinted an oxygen mask over his face. Their eyes met across the chaos. He didn't look away. He didn't look angry or embarrassed or proud. He just looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Elena held his gaze for a moment. Then she turned away and let Thompson guide her toward a waiting ambulance. There would be time for words later. Right now she just wanted to feel the rain on her face and remember what it meant to be alive. The hospital room was too quiet. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, wrapped in heated blankets, an IV drip pumping warm fluids into her arm. The doctors had said she was lucky. Mild hypothermia, some cuts and bruises, nothing permanent. She didn't feel lucky. She felt hollow. The door opened. Margaret Walsh stepped in, her face drawn with exhaustion, and something else Elena couldn't identify. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine." Elena's voice was flat. "How's the team?" "Everyone's stable. O'Brien's in surgery for his leg, but they say he'll walk again. Rodriguez has a dislocated shoulder and some cracked ribs. The others are being treated for minor injuries and exposure." "And Cole?" Margaret hesitated. "He's asking for you." Elena looked up. "What? He's been asking for you since they brought him in. Won't talk to anyone else until he sees you first." Margaret crossed her arms. "I can tell him you're not up for visitors." Elena was already pulling the IV from her arm. "Where is he?" "Elena, you need rest. Where is he?" Margaret sighed. "Room 412. Down the hall, turn left." Elena was out the door before Margaret could say another word. The walk to room 412 felt longer than the crawl through the ventilation shaft. Every step brought memories flooding back. Cole's voice dismissing her concerns. His face when she'd pulled him from the water. The way he'd looked at her across the staging area. She stopped outside his door. Took a breath. Pushed it open. Cole was propped up in bed, his left arm in a sling, bandages wrapped around his head. He looked smaller than she remembered. Younger. Like someone had stripped away all the armor he wore and left only the man underneath. His eyes found hers immediately. "You came. You asked for me." Elena stepped into the room, letting the door close behind her. "What do you want?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "I want to apologize." Elena didn't respond. "I was wrong." He swallowed hard. About everything. About the route. About the risks. About you. His eyes dropped to his hands. "I almost got my team killed because I was too proud to listen to an 18-year-old girl who knew more than I did." "Yes, you did." He flinched. But he didn't argue. "I've been doing this for 6 years." His voice cracked slightly. 6 years of rescues, of training, of being the guy everyone counts on. And in 48 hours you showed me I don't know half as much as I thought I did. Elena leaned against the wall. "Is this the part where I'm supposed to make you feel better?" "No." Cole looked up at her. "This is the part where I tell you what happened down there. What really happened." Something in his tone made Elena go still. "What do you mean?" Cole took a shaky breath. "When the ceiling came down, I fell through the floor, hit the water hard, couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't think. All I knew was I was going to die." He paused. "And the only thing I could think about was you, standing in that briefing room trying to warn us, and me telling everyone to ignore you." His voice broke. "I thought, she tried to save us, and I wouldn't let her." Elena felt something shift in her chest, something she'd been holding on to since her father died. "Then I heard your voice." Cole's eyes were wet now, calling my name. And I thought I was hallucinating, because there was no way, no possible way, that the girl I'd humiliated in front of my entire team would crawl through a collapsed mine to save my life. "I didn't do it for you." "I know." Cole nodded slowly. "You did it because that's who you are. Because you couldn't stand by and let people die, even people who treated you like garbage." He wiped his eyes with his good hand. "I've been in the rescue business for 6 years, Elena. I've saved a lot of people, but I've never seen anyone do what you did today." Elena was quiet. "Who taught you?" Cole asked. "Who taught you to be that brave?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She thought about her father. About cold mornings in Alaska, learning to read the wilderness like a book. About the day he'd put a compass in her hands and told her it would always point her home. About his voice on the radio, calm and steady, the last words she'd ever heard him speak. My father. Her voice was barely above a whisper. He taught me everything. Where is he now? Elena's throat tightened. He died 2 years ago, saving strangers in a mine collapse. Cole closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be. Elena straightened. He died doing what he loved, doing what he believed in. I used to be angry about that. Used to think he was selfish for leaving me behind. What changed? Elena looked at him. Really looked. I stopped being angry when I realized I would have done the same thing. She touched the compass in her pocket. Some things are worth dying for. He taught me that, too. The room fell silent. Cole stared at her with an expression she couldn't read. Then slowly he extended his good hand. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'd like the chance to earn it, to learn from you, to become the kind of person who listens instead of assuming. Elena looked at his hand. She thought about her father, about second chances, about the weight of grudges carried too long. She took his hand. Don't make me regret this. Cole's grip tightened. I won't. The door opened behind them. Commander Hawkins stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. Miss Cross, I need you in the conference room. Now. Elena released Cole's hand. Something in Hawkins's voice told her the reckoning was just beginning. The conference room was packed. Elena recognized most of the faces. Thompson looking exhausted but alert. Margaret Walsh, arms crossed, expression guarded. Several members of the backup team who'd completed the extraction. A man in a suit she didn't recognize, standing in the corner with a tablet in his hands. And at the head of the table, Commander Derek Hawkins. Sit down, Miss Cross. Elena took a seat across from him. The weight of every eye in the room pressed against her skin. I've spent the last 3 hours piecing together what happened in that mine. Hawkins's voice was controlled, precise. I've spoken to every member of the rescue team. I've reviewed the communication logs. I've examined the structural data. He paused. And I have questions. Elena met his gaze. Ask them. How did you know Section 7 would collapse? The geological surveys, the micro-tremor data, the structural degradation patterns. She kept her voice steady. I flagged the concerns 2 weeks ago. Nobody listened. I've seen your report. It was thorough, professional. Hawkins leaned forward. Too professional for a filing clerk with 6 weeks on the job. Elena said nothing. So I did some digging. Hawkins glanced at the man in the suit. Called in some favors. Accessed some records that aren't supposed to exist. Elena's heart began to pound. Imagine my surprise when I found out that Elena Cross isn't just some random intern. Hawkins pulled a folder from beneath the table. Elena Cross is the daughter of James Cross, the bush pilot who saved 47 lives over 20 years of wilderness rescue in Alaska. Murmurs rippled through the room. Elena Cross testified before Congress at age 16 about emergency response protocols in remote areas. Her testimony led to 3 federal policy changes. Hawkins opened the folder. Elena Cross has more wilderness rescue hours than half the people in this room combined. Elena's jaw tightened. And Elena Cross watched her father die 2 years ago in a mine collapse remarkably similar to the one we just survived. Silence. Thompson was staring at her with new eyes. Margaret looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Hawkins closed the folder. Why didn't you tell us who you were? Elena's voice was quiet. Would it have made a difference? It might have. No, it wouldn't. She stood up suddenly angry. I tried to tell you about Section 7. Cole shut me down. I tried to submit a formal risk assessment. It was flagged as non-critical. I tried to warn everyone in that briefing room that they were walking into a death trap, and you know what happened. They laughed at me. Her voice rose. Being my father's daughter wouldn't have changed any of that. Being a woman, being young, being an intern, that's all anyone saw. That's all anyone wanted to see. She slammed her hand on the table. So I did what I always do. I waited, I prepared, and when everything fell apart, I went in and did the job nobody else could do. The room was absolutely still. Hawkins regarded her for a long moment. Then he did something Elena didn't expect. He smiled. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Elena blinked. What? I didn't call you in here to punish you, Miss Cross. I called you in here to offer you a job. The man in the suit stepped forward. My name is Director William Chen. I oversee special operations for the National Emergency Response Coordination Center. He handed Elena a business card. We've been tracking your father's work for years. When he died, we lost one of the best wilderness rescue specialists in the country. Elena stared at the card. I don't understand. We've been looking for someone to continue his legacy, someone with his skills, his instincts, his willingness to go into situations that would kill ordinary people. Chen's eyes were sharp. "We've been looking for you, Miss Cross. We just didn't know where to find you. And now you've proven exactly what we suspected." Chen smiled slightly. "You're not just your father's daughter. You might be better than he was." Elena felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "I'm 18 years old. Age is irrelevant. Experience is what matters, and you have experience that people twice your age couldn't match." Chen glanced at Hawkins. "Commander Hawkins has agreed to serve as your mentor. Thompson will handle your tactical training. You'll have access to resources, equipment, and support that most rescue operations can only dream of." Elena looked around the room. Thompson was nodding slowly. Margaret was smiling. Even the backup team members looked impressed. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Join us." Chen's voice was serious now. "Help us build a new kind of emergency response team. One that values expertise over credentials. One that listens to the people on the ground instead of the bureaucrats behind desks." He paused. "One that your father would have been proud to be part of." Elena touched the compass in her pocket. She thought about her father, about the promise she'd made at his grave, about all the people who needed saving and didn't know where to turn. "I have conditions." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Name them." "First, I choose my own team. No assignments from bureaucrats who've never been in the field." "Acceptable." "Second, I continue my education. I want to finish my geology degree. I want to be the most qualified person in every room I walk into, not just the most experienced." "Also acceptable." "Third," Elena's voice hardened, "if I say a mission is too dangerous, we don't go. No overriding my judgment because someone with more rank thinks they know better." Chen glanced at Hawkins. Hawkins nodded slowly. "That's fair." "Then we have a deal." Elena stood. "I'll need to think about it, but I'll give you an answer by tomorrow." She walked toward the door, pausing with her hand on the handle. "One more thing." Chen looked up. "Yes." "Cole. Marcus Cole." Elena turned to face him. "He made mistakes. He almost got his team killed, but he owned it. He apologized. He asked to learn." She paused. "I want him on my team, if he's willing." The room went silent. Hawkins spoke first. "You want the man who dismissed you, who nearly caused a disaster. I want the man who's willing to change, who understands what it costs to be wrong." Elena's voice was steady. "People who've never failed don't know how to grow. I'd rather work with someone who's hit bottom and climbed back up than someone who's never been tested." Chen and Hawkins exchanged looks. "I'll speak to him," Hawkins said finally. "But the decision is his." "Fair enough." Elena opened the door. She was almost through it when Thompson's voice stopped her. "Elena." She turned. The old man was standing now, his weathered face showing something she hadn't seen before. Pride. Real, genuine pride. "Your father would have been proud. Just wanted you to know that." Elena felt the words hit her somewhere deep. "Thank you." Her voice was thick. "That means more than you know." She walked out before anyone could see her cry. The hospital corridor was empty. Elena walked slowly, processing everything that had just happened. The offer, the conditions, the weight of what she was being asked to become. Her hand found the compass in her pocket. Her father's compass. The one he'd given her on her 10th birthday, the one that had guided them both through countless wilderness journeys. She opened it, watching the needle swing and settle, always pointing north, always pointing home. "Dad," her voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm ready. The compass didn't answer. It just kept pointing. You always said the mountain would tell me what it wants, that I just had to listen. She closed her eyes. I'm listening now, and I think it's telling me to go. She stood there for a long moment alone in the corridor, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Then she opened her eyes, and she knew what she had to do. The walk back to her room felt different, lighter somehow, despite everything. Like a burden she'd been carrying for 2 years had finally started to lift. She was almost there when she heard footsteps behind her. Elena, wait! She turned. Cole was standing in the hallway, still in his hospital gown of V stand, rolling beside him, his face pale with effort. What are you doing? Elena moved toward him. You should be in bed. Hawkins told me, about the offer, about what you said. Cole's voice was strained but determined. You asked for me, on your team. I did. Why? He looked genuinely confused. After everything I did, everything I said. Elena studied him for a moment. Because my father gave people second chances. Because the best lessons come from the worst failures. Because I saw something in that mind, something underneath all the arrogance and pride. She paused. I saw someone who was willing to be better. Cole was silent. I was going to say no. His voice was quiet. When Hawkins asked if I'd be willing to work under your command, my first instinct was to refuse. Pride, I guess. The idea of taking orders from someone half my age, someone I'd dismissed as nothing. And now I'm standing in a hospital corridor, barely able to walk because I had to tell you something before I lost my nerve. He took a breath. I'm in. Whatever you need. Whatever it takes. I'm in. Elena felt something warm spread through her chest. You understand what this means. You won't be the leader anymore. You'll be following my orders, respecting my judgment, trusting my decisions even when they don't make sense to you. I understand. And you're okay with that? Cole almost smiled. 24 hours ago, I would have laughed at the idea. But 24 hours ago, I thought I knew everything. He met her eyes. You showed me I was wrong. Now I want to learn from someone who's actually right. Elena extended her hand. Welcome to the team. Cole took it. His grip was firm, real, the grip of a man who meant what he said. Thank you. His voice cracked slightly. For giving me another chance. For not leaving me to drown when I deserved it. Nobody deserves to drown. Elena released his hand. Now get back to bed before you collapse in the hallway. We've got work to do once you're healed. Cole nodded and turned away, shuffling back toward his room with the IV stand rattling beside him. Elena watched him go. Something had changed between them. Something fundamental. The man who'd walked into that mine was gone, drowned in the same water that should have killed him. The man who walked away was someone new, someone who might actually be worth saving. Elena returned to her room. The heated blankets were still warm, the IV still hanging where she'd left it. But she didn't feel like resting anymore. She felt alive, alert, ready. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in 2 years. It rang 3 times before someone answered. Cross residence. The voice was older female, achingly familiar. Mom. Elena's voice caught. It's me. A long pause. Elena. Her mother's voice broke on the second syllable. Oh, sweetheart. Where are you? Are you okay? I've been so worried. I'm okay, Mom. I'm fine. Elena sat down on the bed. I'm in Colorado. I've been working at a rescue company. A rescue company? Her mother's voice sharpened. Elena, after what happened to your father, that's why I called. Elena took a deep breath. Something happened today. Something big. And I need to tell you about it before you hear it from someone else. She told her mother everything. The mine, the collapse, the rescue, the job offer. By the time she finished, she could hear her mother crying softly on the other end of the line. "Mom, say something." A long silence. Then, "You sound just like him." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "What do you mean, your father?" "The day before he died, he called me. Told me about a family trapped in a mine. Told me he had to go even though it was dangerous. Even though I begged him not to." Her mother's voice was thick with emotion. "He said some things are worth dying for, that he'd rather die trying to save strangers than live knowing he could have helped and didn't." I remember. I was so angry at him, for leaving, for choosing them over us. A pause. "But now I understand. And hearing you talk about what you did today, crawling through a collapsed mine to save a man who treated you like garbage, I finally understand why he was the way he was." "Mom, don't apologize, sweetheart. Don't explain. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll come home when it's over. Whatever you're building out there, whatever you're becoming, promise me you'll remember you have someone waiting for you. Someone who needs you to survive." Elena closed her eyes. "I promise." "I love you, Elena. More than you know." "I love you too, Mom. I'll call you soon." She hung up. The room was quiet. Elena sat there for a long time, holding her father's compass, feeling its weight in her palm. She'd made a choice today. A choice that would change everything. And for the first time since her father died, she wasn't afraid of where it would lead. 3 months changed everything. Elena stood in the Tactical Operations Center at Rocky Mountain Rescue Solutions, watching her team prepare for their 12th mission. Cole was checking equipment with the focused intensity of someone who'd learned what carelessness could cost. Rodriguez, his shoulder fully healed, was running through communication protocols with the efficiency of a man who'd once heard static when his life depended on clarity. Thompson sat in the corner, reviewing geological surveys the way Elena had taught him, looking for patterns that could kill. They were her team now. Not Hawkins's. Not Chen's. Hers. "Final check in 5 minutes." Elena's voice carried across the room without effort. "I want everyone sharp. This one's different." Cole looked up. "Different how?" "The call came through an hour ago. 14 hikers trapped in a flash flood zone near Boulder Canyon. Water's rising fast. Local emergency services are overwhelmed." She pulled up the topographical map on the main screen. "The access roads are washed out. Helicopter approach is compromised by wind conditions. That leaves one option. Ground insertion through the canyon itself." Thompson's voice was grim. "That's a death sentence in flood conditions. It's a death sentence if we do it wrong." Elena zoomed in on a section of the map. "But there's a ridge path that runs parallel to the main channel. It's narrow, it's unstable, and it hasn't been maintained in 20 years. But it'll get us close enough to establish anchor points for extraction." Rodriguez leaned forward. "How do you know about this path?" "Because my father used it in 2015. Same canyon. Same conditions." Elena's voice was steady. "He pulled 6 people out in 4 hours. Lost nobody." The room went quiet. Cole stood up. "Then we follow the path. What's the timeline?" "Water levels suggest we have about 3 hours before the flood zone becomes completely inaccessible. After that, anyone still trapped will be swept downstream." Elena looked at each member of her team. "We move in 30 minutes. Questions?" Nobody spoke. "Good. Get your gear." The team dispersed, leaving Elena alone with the map. She stared at the canyon, feeling the weight of 14 lives pressing against her chest. These weren't rescuers who'd made calculated risks. These were families. Tourists. People who'd been enjoying a summer hike when the weather turned without warning. Children were among them. The dispatch report had mentioned at least 4. Elena touched the compass in her pocket. I know, Dad. Her voice was barely a whisper. I know what's at stake. The door opened behind her. Director Chen walked in, his face grave. Miss Cross, we need to talk. Elena turned. If this is about the mission parameters, it's not. Chen stopped a few feet away from her. We've received additional information about the flood zone. Information that changes things significantly. What kind of information? Chen hesitated. Elena had learned to read him over the past 3 months. The hesitation wasn't uncertainty. It was reluctance. There's a dam upstream, old construction, privately owned. The company that maintains it reported structural concerns last year, but the repairs were delayed due to funding issues. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. How serious? Serious enough that if water levels continue to rise at the current rate, the dam could fail within the next 4 hours. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. If that dam breaks while we're in the canyon, you'll have approximately 6 minutes to reach high ground before a wall of water sweeps through. Chen's voice was flat. 6 minutes, Miss Cross, for your entire team and 14 civilians. Elena's mind raced through calculations. The ridge path, the extraction points, the time needed to reach each group of trapped hikers and move them to safety. We can't extract everyone in 6 minutes. No, you can't. Then what are you suggesting, that we leave them? I'm suggesting you make a choice. Chen's eyes were hard. You can attempt a full extraction and risk losing your entire team plus the civilians if the dam fails. Or you can prioritize the most accessible group, save who you can, and accept that some people won't make it. Elena stared at him. You're asking me to decide who lives and who dies. I'm asking you to be a leader. Leaders make impossible choices. Chen paused. Your father understood that. My father would never have left people behind. Your father died trying to save everyone. Chen's voice softened slightly. I'm not saying his choice was wrong, but I am saying that sometimes the bravest thing a leader can do is recognize their limits. Elena felt her hands curl into fists. Get me real-time data on the dam. Water level, structural readings, everything. I want updates every 15 minutes. And the mission? The mission proceeds. Elena's voice was steel. I'll make my choices when I have to make them, not before. Chen studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Your team is ready. Transport leaves in 20 minutes. He walked out. Elena stood alone, staring at the map, feeling the weight of 14 lives pressing against her chest. 4 children. She closed her eyes. Dad, help me. Please. The transport dropped them at the canyon's edge just as the rain intensified. Elena led the way down the ridge path, moving with the sure-footed confidence her father had drilled into her over years of wilderness navigation. Cole followed close behind, then Rodriguez, then Thompson. Behind them came 4 additional team members, specialists, Chen had assigned after Elena proved herself in the field. 8 people, 14 civilians to extract, possibly less than 3 hours. The math was brutal. First group is 200 meters ahead, Elena's voice carried over the rain. Family of 4, parents and 2 kids ages 8 and 12. They're on a rock formation that's still above water but losing ground fast. How do you want to approach? Cole asked. You and Rodriguez handle the extraction. Thompson and I will push ahead to locate the second group. She checked her GPS. The dam monitoring data is feeding to my tablet. If readings spike, everyone moves to high ground immediately. No exceptions. Understood. They reached the first group in 12 minutes. The family was huddled on a narrow rock ledge, the parents shielding their children from the worst of the rain. The father's face showed raw terror. The mother was crying. The kids looked too scared to make a sound. "Rocky Mountain Rescue!" Cole's voice cut through the storm. "We're here to get you out." "Oh, thank God." The father's voice cracked. "Please, the water's rising. We tried to climb, but..." "Don't explain. Just follow instructions." Elena was already securing anchor lines. "Cole, get harnesses on the kids first. Rodriguez helped the parents." The extraction took 18 minutes. 18 minutes of fighting rain and rising water and the desperate clinging terror of people who'd thought they were going to die. When they finally pulled the family to safety on the ridge path, the mother grabbed Elena's arm. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I thought, you're safe now. But we need to keep moving." Elena's voice was gentle but firm. "Can you walk?" "Yes. Yes, we can walk." "Then follow Thompson. He'll guide you to the extraction point." Elena turned to her team. "First group secure. Moving to second location." They pushed deeper into the canyon. The rain was getting worse. The water was rising faster. And somewhere upstream a dam was slowly failing. Elena's tablet buzzed with an update. Dam stress levels at 73% of critical threshold. She kept moving. The second group was harder. 5 hikers in their 20s trapped on a narrow shelf above a churning section of the main channel. One of them had a broken ankle. Another was showing signs of hypothermia. "We can't carry him out." Cole's assessment was clinical. "Not in these conditions, not without risking the whole team." "Then we stabilize and move." Elena was already pulling medical supplies from her pack. "Rodriguez, improvise a splint. Cole, get the hypothermic one wrapped in emergency blankets. I need body heat on him now." "Elena, the water." "I see the water." Her voice was sharp. "Do what I said." They worked fast. The injured hiker screamed when they set his ankle. The hypothermic one was barely conscious. The other 3 huddled together watching the water rise with eyes full of terror. "We're not going to make it, are we?" One of them, a young woman with rain-soaked hair and trembling hands, grabbed Elena's arm. "We're going to die here." Elena met her eyes. "Not if I have anything to say about it." "But the water is a problem. Problems have solutions." Elena finished securing the splint. "Can you help support your friend, keep weight off his bad leg?" The woman nodded weakly. "Then you're part of the solution. Let's move." The extraction took 34 minutes. By the time they reached the ridge path, the main channel had risen another 4 feet. The shelf where they'd found the hikers was completely submerged. Elena's tablet buzzed again. Dam stress levels at 81% of critical threshold. She didn't have time to think about it. Third group location. Thompson checked the coordinates. Half a mile downstream, larger group, 6 civilians including 2 children. Time estimate, at current pace maybe 40 minutes to reach them. At extraction time, we don't have 40 minutes. Elena's mind raced. The ridge path splits ahead. Cole, take Rodriguez and 2 of the specialists to the 4th group location. They're the closest to the canyon mouth. Get them out fast and establish an extraction corridor. What about you? Thompson and I will handle the 3rd group. We'll link up at the extraction point. Cole hesitated. Elena, if the dam fails, everyone runs for high ground. No exceptions, no heroics. She grabbed his arm. I mean it, Cole. If it comes down to the team or the civilians, you save the team. His face twisted. You don't actually expect me to leave people behind. I expect you to follow orders. Her voice hardened. We lost my father because he couldn't make that choice. I won't lose anyone else the same way. Cole stared at her. Then he nodded. Stay alive, Cross. You too, Cole. The teams split. Elena pushed forward with Thompson moving as fast as the treacherous terrain would allow. The third group was in worse shape than the first two. 6 people clinging to a cluster of rocks in the middle of what had become a raging river. The current was brutal, the water cold, the spray making it nearly impossible to see. 2 of them were children, a boy around 10, and a girl who couldn't have been more than 6. The girl was crying. Daddy, Daddy, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, I know. Just hold on. The father's arms were wrapped around both children, but Elena could see his strength failing. His face was pale. His grip was slipping. Thompson. Elena was already securing her harness to an anchor point. I need a traverse line to that rock formation. The current's too strong. You'll be swept away. Then make sure the line holds. Elena grabbed the rope. I'm going across. Elena. But she was already moving. The water hit her like a hammer. Freezing, brutal, relentless. It tried to tear her from the line, tried to drag her downstream to where the current would smash her against rocks until she stopped moving. She kept going, hand over hand, foot by foot, fighting for every inch while the river tried to kill her. The little girl saw her coming. Daddy, someone's coming! Someone's coming! Elena reached the rock formation, hauled herself up, gasping for breath. Rocky Mountain Rescue! Her voice was ragged. I'm getting you out. The father stared at her like she was an angel. Please, my children. Please save my children. I'm going to save all of you. Elena was already assessing the group. 2 children, 4 adults, 1 traverse line. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? The father nodded. Good. Elena looked at the little girl. What's your name, sweetheart? Madison. Madison. That's a beautiful name. I'm Elena. She smiled, keeping her voice calm despite the chaos around them. I'm going to put a special harness on you, and then you're going to fly across the water like a superhero. Does that sound okay? Madison's eyes were huge with fear. I'm scared. I know. I was scared the first time I did this too. Elena pulled out a child-sized harness. But you know what helped me? What? My daddy told me that brave doesn't mean not being scared. Brave means being scared and doing it anyway. She slipped the harness over Madison's shoulders. Do you think you can be brave for me? Madison looked at her father. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Okay. Madison's voice was tiny. I'll be brave. That's my girl. Elena secured the harness, attached it to the traverse line, and looked at Thompson across the churning water. First one coming across, pull her steady. Ready! Elena lifted Madison, positioned her on the line, and let go. The little girl screamed as she slid across the water, the current spraying around her, the rope straining against the anchors. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. Thompson's arms caught her on the other side. First one secure. His voice carried over the storm. Send the next. Elena turned to the boy. Your turn, buddy. Same thing. Nice and easy. The boy was braver than his sister, or maybe just more numb with shock. He went across without screaming, his eyes closed tight, his hands gripping the harness like it was the only solid thing in the universe. 16 civilians total. 10 now safe. 4 more to go. Elena's tablet buzzed. She didn't want to look. She looked anyway. Dam stress levels at 92% of critical threshold. Everybody move faster! Her voice was sharp. We're running out of time! The father went next, then the 3 remaining adults college students who'd been hiking together when the flood hit. Elena was the last one on the rock. She secured her harness, checked the line, prepared to cross. Her tablet buzzed again. Dam stress levels at 97% of critical threshold. Failure imminent. Elena, Thompson's voice was frantic. Move now! She launched herself onto the line. The crossing took 12 seconds. 12 seconds of fighting the current, feeling the rope strain, knowing that somewhere upstream a wall of water was about to be unleashed. Thompson grabbed her as she reached the far side, hauling her onto solid ground. We need to run. His voice was hoarse. Now! The extraction point. Forget the extraction point. He was already pushing the civilians toward higher ground. We need elevation. The dam is failing. Elena's radio crackled. Cole's voice, distorted but audible. Elena, we've got the 4th group heading to high ground. The dam. The transmission cut out. Elena grabbed Madison's hand. Everybody run! They ran, up the ridge path, through the rain, away from the canyon floor where the water was about to become a monster. Elena could feel it coming before she heard it. A vibration in the earth. A pressure in the air. The sound of something massive being unleashed. Faster! She was practically dragging Madison now. Don't look back, just run! The roar came from behind them. Elena had heard floods before, had seen videos, read reports, studied the physics of water moving at destructive speeds. Nothing had prepared her for this. The wall of water that swept through the canyon sounded like the end of the world, like every nightmare she'd ever had compressed into a single, terrifying moment. There, Thompson pointed to a rocky outcropping 20 feet above the path. Get everyone up. When they scrambled, climbing, pulling, pushing each other toward safety while the water thundered closer. Elena lifted Madison onto the rocks, then the boy, then helped the father climb up beside his children. The water hit the ridge path 3 seconds after they cleared it. The force was indescribable. Trees snapped like twigs. Boulders the size of cars tumbled past. The path they'd been running on moments before simply ceased to exist. Madison buried her face in her father's chest, sobbing. Elena stood on the outcropping, watching the destruction below, feeling her heart pound against her ribs. Elena, Thompson's voice was shaky. We made it. We actually made it. She didn't respond. Her radio crackled again. Cole's voice. Elena, do you copy? Please respond. She grabbed the radio. I'm here. 3rd group is secure. 6 civilians, no casualties. She paused. What's your status? A long moment of static. Then 4th group is secure. 5 civilians, all safe. We're on high ground about half a mile from the extraction point. Casualties? None. Cole's voice cracked slightly. We made it, Elena. All of us. Everyone. Elena closed her eyes. 14 civilians. 8 team members. 0 casualties. She thought about Chen's words, about impossible choices, about her father dying because he couldn't leave people behind. Maybe Chen was wrong. Maybe impossible choices were only impossible if you accepted the limits other people set for you. Good work, Cole. Her voice was steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Let's get everyone home. The helicopter arrived an hour later. Elena watched her team load the last of the civilians, making sure everyone was accounted for. The rain had finally stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds. Below them, the canyon still churned with floodwater, but the worst was over. Madison tugged at Elena's sleeve. Miss Elena? Elena crouched down to the little girl's level. Yes, sweetheart. Are you a superhero? Elena smiled. No, honey. I'm just someone who doesn't know how to give up. Madison hugged her. It was the tightest hug Elena had ever received. Thank you for saving us. Madison's voice was muffled against Elena's shoulder. Thank you for being brave. Elena held her for a moment, feeling the warmth of a life she'd helped preserve, feeling the weight of her father's legacy pressing against her heart. You're welcome. She pulled back, looking into Madison's eyes. And thank you for being brave, too. I couldn't have done it without you. Madison beamed. Her father appeared, scooping her up in his arms. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted, but shining with gratitude. I don't know how to thank you. His voice broke. My children are alive because of you. My family is alive because of you. Elena stood. Go home. Hold your family close. That's all the thanks I need. The father nodded, tears streaming down his face, and carried his children toward the waiting helicopter. Elena watched them go. Cole appeared at her side. 14 for 14. His voice was quiet. Chen said it couldn't be done. Chen was wrong. Yeah. Cole smiled slightly. He was. They stood together in silence, watching the helicopter lift off, carrying the survivors toward safety and warmth, and lives that would continue, because 18-year-old Elena Cross had refused to accept impossible. Your father would be proud. Cole's voice was soft. I never met him, but I know he'd be proud. Elena touched the compass in her pocket. I hope so. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I really hope so. 6 months after the canyon rescue, Elena stood in front of 200 people at the National Emergency Response Conference, her hands steady at her sides, her father's compass heavy in her pocket. She was 19 years old now, the youngest keynote speaker in the conference's 40-year history. Director Chen had insisted. After the canyon mission made national news, 14 civilians saved 0 casualties, an 18-year-old leading the team that accomplished what experts said couldn't be done. The invitations had started pouring in. Media interviews, training seminars, government consultations. Elena had declined most of them. This one, she couldn't refuse. Ladies and gentlemen, the conference moderator's voice echoed through the auditorium. Please welcome Elena Cross, Director of Special Operations for the National Emergency Response Coordination Center. The applause was thunderous. Elena walked to the podium, feeling every eye in the room tracking her movement. She saw skepticism in some faces, curiosity in others. A few looked openly hostile older men in expensive suits who clearly resented being lectured by someone young enough to be their granddaughter. She didn't care. Thank you for having me. Her voice was clear, calm, carrying the authority her father had taught her to project. I know what some of you are thinking. I can see it on your faces. Who is this kid? What does she know about emergency response? Why should we listen to someone who was in high school 3 years ago? Uncomfortable shifting in the audience. I'm going to tell you a story. Elena gripped the podium. Not about the canyon rescue. You've all read those reports. I'm going to tell you about a man named James Cross, and why everything I know about saving lives I learned from watching him die. The auditorium went completely silent. My father was a bush pilot in Alaska for 20 years. He flew rescue missions in conditions that would ground most aircraft. He pulled survivors from crashes, floods, avalanches, wilderness emergencies that local authorities had written off as unrecoverable. Elena paused. He saved 47 lives. I know the exact number because he kept count. Not for glory, for accountability. She pulled the compass from her pocket, held it up so the audience could see. He gave me this compass when I was 10 years old, told me it would always point me home. Told me that no matter how lost I got, I could find my way back if I trusted the needle. Her voice thickened slightly. 2 years ago, he died in a mine collapse, saving a family of 4 he'd never met. He saw the danger. He warned people. They didn't listen, so he went in anyway because that's who he was. She set the compass on the podium. I was supposed to be with him that day. He told me to stay behind, said it was too dangerous. I listened. Her jaw tightened. I've spent every day since wondering if he'd still be alive if I hadn't. The audience was transfixed. That guilt drove me to become what I am today. I trained harder than anyone expected. I learned things people twice my age hadn't mastered. I walked into situations that should have killed me and came out the other side because I refused to fail the way I failed my father. Elena's eyes swept the crowd. But here's what I've learned in the past 6 months. Guilt isn't enough. Training isn't enough. Even courage isn't enough. She leaned forward. What matters is listening. Really listening. To the data. To the experts, to the quiet voice in the room that everyone else is ignoring because they're too proud or too busy or too certain they already know everything. Her gaze found a cluster of older men in the front row, the ones who'd looked hostile when she walked on stage. 6 months ago, I was that quiet voice. An 18-year-old intern trying to warn a room full of experienced rescue professionals that their mission plan was going to get people killed. They laughed at me, dismissed me, told me to stick to filing paperwork. She smiled grimly. Then the mine collapsed, and suddenly everyone wanted to know how I'd known, how I'd seen what they couldn't see. She straightened. The answer is simple. I wasn't smarter than them. I wasn't more experienced. I was just willing to look at information they'd decided wasn't worth their time. I read the geological surveys they'd skimmed. I noticed the patterns they'd overlooked. I asked questions they thought were beneath them. Her voice hardened. 8 men almost died because nobody in that room would listen to an 18-year-old girl. 8 families almost lost father's sons, brothers because the people in charge were too arrogant to consider that someone younger, someone quieter, someone less credentialed might actually know something they didn't. The hostile faces in the front row had gone pale. I'm not here to lecture you about respecting young people. I'm here to tell you that the next time you dismiss someone's concerns because of their age, their gender, their title, their position in the hierarchy, you might be signing death warrants. Elena's voice dropped. And you'll have to live with that, every day, for the rest of your lives. She picked up the compass again. My father taught me that the mountain doesn't care about your credentials. The flood doesn't check your resume. The fire doesn't ask how many years of experience you have. These forces will kill you just as dead, whether you're a 20-year veteran or a first-day recruit. She held up the compass. The only thing that matters is whether you're paying attention. Whether you're humble enough to admit you don't know everything. Whether you're brave enough to listen to the people others ignore. She tucked the compass back in her pocket. In the past 6 months, my team has run 23 missions. 64 lives saved. 0 casualties among team members or civilians. She paused. You know what our secret is? We listen. To everyone. The newest recruit on the team has the same authority to raise concerns as the most experienced veteran, because the next life-saving insight might come from anywhere, and if we're too proud to hear it, people die. Elena stepped back from the podium. That's my message. That's my father's legacy. That's what I hope you'll take from this conference, regardless of what else you learn here. She looked out at the audience. 200 faces, some moved, some thoughtful, some still resistant. Listen to the quiet voices. They might be the ones that save your life. The applause started slowly. Then it built. By the time Elena walked off stage, the entire auditorium was on its feet. She didn't look back. The reception afterward was overwhelming. People surrounded Elena the moment she stepped off the stage. Emergency response, professionals, government officials, media representatives, all wanting a piece of the young woman who'd captivated the conference. She answered questions politely, shook hands, accepted business cards she knew she'd never use. Then she saw a face in the crowd that made her freeze. Margaret Walsh was standing near the back of the reception hall, watching her with an expression that mixed pride with something Elena couldn't quite identify. Elena excused herself from the group around her and made her way through the crowd. "Margaret," her voice was surprised. "I didn't know you were coming." "I wasn't planning to." Margaret smiled slightly. "But when I heard you were giving the keynote, I couldn't stay away. Had to see it for myself." "See what? The woman you've become." Margaret's eyes glistened. "Your father would be so proud, Elena. So incredibly proud." Elena felt her throat tighten. "I'm just trying to honor his memory." "You're doing more than that." Margaret pulled an envelope from her jacket. "This came for you. I wanted to deliver it personally." Elena took the envelope. Her name was written on the front in handwriting she didn't recognize. "What is it? Open it." Elena slid her finger under the seal and pulled out a single sheet of paper. A letter. Handwritten. She read the first line, and her heart stopped. "Dear Elena, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it back from the mission. I asked Margaret to hold this letter and give it to you when she thought you were ready." Elena looked up, her eyes wide. "This is from my father," Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He wrote it the night before the collapse, gave it to me that morning just in case." Her voice broke. "I've been waiting for the right moment. After today, I knew it was time." Elena's hands were trembling. She looked back at the letter. "I know you're angry at me. I know you think I abandoned you by going into that mine. But Elena, there are some things more important than coming home. Some calls you can't ignore, no matter the cost. You have a gift. I saw it from the day you were born. The way you notice things others miss. The way you stay calm when everyone else panics. The way you never, ever give up even when the odds are impossible. That gift isn't meant to be hidden. It's meant to be shared, used, developed into something that can change the world. I know you'll be scared. I know you'll doubt yourself. I know there will be times when you want to give up, to walk away, to find an easier path. But Elena, easy paths don't lead anywhere worth going. So here's my last piece of advice. My last lesson. My last gift to you. Don't let my death define you. Let it inspire you. Don't spend your life mourning what you lost. Spend it building something that honors what we had. And when the world tells you you're too young, too inexperienced, too unqualified, remember that the mountain doesn't care about credentials. The mountain only cares about courage. I love you more than words can say. I have loved you since the moment I first held you, and I will love you long after this body returns to the earth. Go save the world, Elena. I'll be watching. Always, Dad." Elena couldn't see through her tears. The letter shook in her hands. Her whole body was shaking. Margaret wrapped her arms around her, holding her tight while she sobbed. "He knew." Elena's voice was barely audible. "He knew he might not come back." "He knew." Margaret's voice was gentle, but he went anyway. Because that's who he was. And because he knew you'd be strong enough to carry on without him. Elena pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I've been so angry at him, for leaving, for choosing strangers over his own daughter, for making me grow up without him." "I know. But this letter... Elena looked at this paper in her hands. He wasn't choosing strangers over me. He was choosing to be the person he'd always taught me to be. He was showing me that principles matter more than safety, that some things are worth dying for. Margaret nodded. He was showing you who you could become. Elena folded the letter carefully, tucked it into her pocket next to the compass. Thank you. Her voice was thick. For keeping this. For waiting. For knowing when I needed to read it. Thank you for becoming someone worth giving it to. Margaret smiled through her tears. Now go. Your team is waiting. Elena hugged her one more time. Then she walked out of the reception hall, leaving behind the accolades and the business cards and the overwhelming attention. She had somewhere more important to be. The team was gathered at Rocky Mountain Rescue Solutions when Elena arrived. Cole, Rodriguez, Thompson, the 8-person unit that had become her family over the past 6 months. They were supposed to be off duty, but someone had brought pizza, and someone else had brought beer, and the Tactical Operations Center had transformed into something that felt almost like home. There she is. Rodriguez raised a bottle in her direction. The conquering hero returns. I saw clips from the speech online. Cole grinned. You made at least 3 senators cry. Just 3. Elena smiled despite herself. I was aiming for 5. Thompson handed her a plate with 2 slices of pizza. Eat. You look like you haven't had a meal in 3 days. Feels like it. Elena took the plate, settled into a chair, felt the tension of the day slowly drain from her shoulders. This was where she belonged. Not on stages or in conference halls. Here. With the people who'd trusted her with their lives and proven worthy of her trust in return. Cole noticed the letter still clutched in her hand. What's that? Elena hesitated. Then she told them. About her father's letter. About the words he'd written the night before he died. About the permission he'd given her from beyond the grave to stop being angry and start being grateful. By the time she finished, Rodriguez was crying. Thompson's eyes were red. Even Cole, who prided himself on stoic professionalism, looked suspiciously misty. Your dad sounds like he was something special. Cole's voice was rough. He was. Elena touched the compass in her pocket. He really was. You know what I think? Thompson leaned forward. I think he'd want you to stop carrying all this weight alone. I think he'd want you to let us help. Elena looked around the room at the faces of her team. You already help. Every day. Every mission. Not just professionally. Rodriguez set down her beer. Personally. We're a family, Elena. That's what we've become. And families share burdens. They don't let one person carry everything alone. Elena felt something shift inside her chest. For 2 years, she'd been carrying her father's death like a stone around her neck. Pushing herself harder, demanding more, refusing to let anyone close enough to share the weight. But these people, Cole, Rodriguez, Thompson, the others they'd already gotten close. They'd seen her at her worst and stayed anyway. They'd trusted her with their lives and proven worthy of her trust in return. Maybe it was time to let them in. Really let them in. My father's birthday is next month. Elena's voice was quiet. I usually spend it alone, visit his grave, talk to him about what I've been doing. She paused. Would you all come with me? I'd like you to meet him. The silence in the room was absolute. Then Cole nodded. We'd be honored. 1 month later, Elena stood at her father's grave with 8 people at her back. The morning was crisp and clear, the kind of weather her father had loved, cool enough to see your breath, warm enough to stay outside for hours. His headstone was simple. White marble. Clean lines. The words carved into it exactly what he'd requested. James Cross, beloved father, courageous rescuer, guardian of the North. He gave his life so others might live. Elena knelt, placing a small bouquet of wildflowers at the base of the stone. "Hey, Dad." Her voice was soft. "I brought some friends." She felt the team gather closer behind her. "This is Cole. You would have hated him at first, too cocky, too sure of himself. But he's learned. He's become someone you'd be proud to work with." She smiled slightly. "He reminds me of you, actually, before you got wise." She heard Cole make a small sound behind her, something between a laugh and a sob. "And this is Rodriguez, bravest man I've ever met next to you. He broke his shoulder in the mine collapse and never complained once. Still showed up for the next mission ready to work." "And Thompson," Elena's voice thickened. "Thompson, who lost his own team years ago and found the courage to try again. Who believed in me when I was just a scared kid pretending to be something I wasn't." She touched the compass in her pocket. "I got your letter, Dad. Margaret finally gave it to me. And I understand now. What you were trying to tell me. What you wanted me to become." She stood facing the headstone. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Grateful for 18 years with the best father anyone could ask for. Grateful for everything you taught me. Grateful that when you had to choose between safety and service, you chose service." Her voice broke slightly. "That's who you were, and that's who I want to be." She felt Cole's hand on her shoulder, Rodriguez on her other side, the whole team surrounding her like a shield. "I'm building something, Dad, something that honors your legacy, a team that listens to everyone, that values courage over credentials, that refuses to leave anyone behind." She wiped her eyes. "We've saved 87 lives in the past year, 87 people who are home with their families because of what you taught me." She pressed her palm against the cold stone. "I miss you every day. I'll miss you for the rest of my life. But I'm not going to let that grief destroy me anymore. I'm going to use it, channel it, turn it into something that makes the world better." She stepped back. "Rest easy, Dad. I've got it from here." The team stood in silence for a long moment. Then Thompson spoke. "Mr. Cross, your daughter is the finest rescue professional I've ever worked with. She's saved lives that would have been lost under any other leader. She's built a team that would follow her into hell if she asked." Cole stepped forward. "She gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one. Taught me that real strength isn't about never failing, it's about getting back up when you do." Rodriguez joined them. "She pulled me out of a collapsed mine and never asked for thanks. She sees the best in people even when they can't see it in themselves." One by one, each member of the team spoke, sharing what Elena meant to them, what she'd taught them, how she'd changed their lives. Elena stood among them, tears streaming down her face, feeling surrounded by something she'd thought she'd lost forever. Family. Not blood family. Something stronger. Something forged in crisis and tempered by trust. When the last person had spoken, Elena turned to face her team. "Thank you." Her voice was steady despite the tears. "For coming today, for being here, for being the family I didn't know I needed." She looked back at her father's grave one last time. "Let's go home." They walked together toward the parking lot, 8 people bound by something stronger than protocol or professional obligation. Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A message from Director Chen. "New mission. Complex rescue in the Rockies. Multiple civilian casualties reported. Local teams requesting your assistance." She stopped walking. Cole noticed immediately. "What is it?" "Work." Elena showed him the screen. Complex rescue. They're asking for us. The team exchanged glances. So much for the day off. Rodriguez smiled grimly. What's the plan, boss? Elena looked at her father's headstone one final time. Then she turned to her team. We do what we always do. We prepare. We adapt. We save as many lives as possible. Her voice hardened with purpose. And we don't stop until everyone comes home. She started toward the vehicles, her team falling into step behind her. The compass in her pocket pointed north, steady and true. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Go save the world, Elena. I'll be watching. She intended to do exactly that. Some people were born to lead from the front. Others were meant to guard from the shadows, watching over those who walked into danger without understanding it. Elena Cross had learned which one she was, and she had made her peace with it. The mountain was calling. She was ready to answer.